Hello and welcome to Navigating, where we talk about what shapes our world and how it shapes it, along with Vedant. And we both are media students, so we talk through the lens of journalism, media, and how information shapes and helps in that question. So, hi Vedant, how are you? We usually have Zui, but she called me and said she's very sick, and I was going to convince her to come at least half an hour, but her voice was like that meme where there are these women and they talk about, okay, she's my mom, she's my mom, she's my, and that, do you remember that dadi who is like 100 years old, and she, when she talks, it sounds like a terminator. And then so her voice was like that, so I was like, all right, take rest for a month, don't meet me,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
I mean, clearly you have issues. So she's not there, but we both are there as always. And well, today I wanted to talk about the Epstein files. And I think the audience that listens to us would probably already know a lot about who is Epstein and what happened and whatever is happening right now. I wanted to talk about how, how you have been treating this issue, because my mother also called me yesterday, and like she was really terrified about whatever she was listening to and reading about, and even she tried to see the Netflix documentary which was re-released. And it was a big shock to a lot of people who weren't actually following this issue or are not really familiar with what happens in US all the time. So they're really shocked, they're really trying to make sense of it all. And a lot of times, a coping mechanism is always to just brush past the issue and not talk about it and say that, you know what, it is happening in America, it doesn't affect us. But I tend to think a bit differently. But before that, I would just like to ask you, have you experienced anything different talking with people about this issue now compared to maybe a few years ago or few months ago, if you had talked about this? And also, how you have been reacting to all of this news?
Earlier, I was really not that aware about, how many people were actually involved in this. I just knew that Epstein is a pedophile. He had an island where a lot of celebrities used to go, and there used to be these memes on Twitter, like when the list of people who have been on Epstein Island, and there used to be a random list of 100 people, and somewhere a football player's name was inserted, like a meme, something of that sort. So
Yeah.
that was my knowledge about the Epstein files. But now when the all of those were released and I read and I find out exactly how many people were involved in this, I was, of course, I was shocked, but it did not come that much of a surprise because, uh, so initially when I watched this series called Mr. Robot, uh, I was pretty unaware about stuff before that, but once I watched it, and after that, it changed my entire perception around how the top 1% of the 1% who control this world, who actually have so much in power, and we as common citizens are unaware about who actually is in power and what kind of stuff goes on behind the scenes. Like, these people just let us know whatever they want to let us know, and it's not even like 1% of the surface. And after watching that, it made me realize that these people have so much money and power, and this kind of stuff that keeps on coming out about celebrities, where you find out they're actually weirdos and freaks behind the scenes and whatever stuff they have done, it kind of did not come as a surprise because of that. But of course, I was shocked to know that people like Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, like these high profile people who you probably do not expect to be involved in this, are also a part of it. So
Yeah.
that is came as a shock to me.
And I think you were talking about these big names in tech world, and they're supposedly our leaders taking our world into the future, and this is something that they portray as well. And this is where again information and media comes into play, and why we like stress on how or how everything is shaped by information, because Bill Gates has poured in millions, probably billions, to shape his personality and how people perceive him. He was always perceived as a tech genius who led Microsoft, and Microsoft is now in every household almost. And then when it was the end of the billionaire worshipping, sort of like the world was moving past that. He was like promoting how I do things in Africa, and how I'm helping
Yeah.
poor kids. And there is always a truth to it. Obviously, he must have done, or he has done, some very good work, but we shouldn't forget that the amount of money and amount of power that he has, it's something that is like the impact that he is having positive impact he is having in the world, might be like a very negligible thing compared to what harm he has done, or what he or like a personality who he is, and what he's promoting to us could be very different. And the initial shock that people have is because, as common citizens, as someone who does not have that kind of a power to change the world, or like change lives of people, we often look at the people who can do that, and then we feel as though, what, they will do it, like I don't need to worry about that. And it happens in our family as well. If there is a crisis, if we are kids, and a tire bursts out of our car, we will think that, okay, my dad is there, my father and my grandfather, they will look into it. I don't need to panic. I don't have to look at the ways I can solve this issue, because they are there. I can probably just help them, and I put my trust into them, because I feel that they will find a solution, they will take me out of crisis. And obviously, in that moment, we don't think of this complex issue, but at the back of our mind, if our father is there in the car and then the engine bursts out, we are much more relieved, because we feel that he will take care of it. And obviously, once we grow, this is the responsibility that we have to take, so that our kids feel the same way. So when if you look at like this world phenomenon, when we are looking at 5 6 people who are really really popular and really famous, and they're talking about how this is the new thing, this is the future, and the world is going to move them, we feel that, okay, these are the people who are going to solve issues for us. But very quickly, once you grow up, you realize that that's not the case. I mean, they are there to earn money, they are there to first do things what they like, and then they will just probably try to convince us that whatever they're doing is for the good of the world.
And I
And yeah.
feel like, because you mentioned that point, I feel that this is a really good. This could be one of the steps that actually could to the lead to the stopping of worshipping billionaires, because once even common people find out that these are just people who were good at maybe studying or finding solutions, and they just earned millions because of that, while also exploiting a lot of people in the process. They're not these gods or gurus who are going to save the world from anything, like any problem or anything. They're just people who got rich because of some of their ideas. Then they started to maintain a good public image by donating a very small fraction of that amount into charities, to show people that they actually care about the world. But when stuff like this comes out, it actually shows that these are just people in power who behind the scenes are monsters,
Yeah.
and it shows that they are of course human, and they're not some extraordinary people that need to be worshipped. So that is probably one good thing that might come out of it.
And why information matters so much in this world, because so many people try to control it. And the Epstein files case, the files are coming out right now, but this has been happening since the 1980s. So imagine the power they had to control the narrative, silence people who wanted to talk against them for 20 25 years, or even more than that, 30 years almost. And then, because the pressure grew and victims came forward, now they have to release everything. And obviously, the US population, majority of them, they are also trying to promote more transparency, more release. So it takes time, and it just tells me how being more information literate, how being more media literate is going to help us avoid all of this. Because as people sitting outside, there's a shock value to this news. We have been sensitized by social media, uh, you know to having shocks, because when even when I'm learning how to do social media, how to do YouTube, and when we learned about news and journalism in our college, there was always this factor. Okay, you need to shock the viewer with your headlines, so they will read what you want to tell. So like I can't just write uh we media literacy is important and then publish a video. Like no one is going to care about that, but I have to write something, I have to use a face, I have to try to make people understand. And there's a thin line between clickbait and actual information or actual interesting headline or interesting title. And that cumulative effect of 10-15 years of this, of just this, has perhaps sensitized everyone to the actual shocking news like the climate change thing. Now, if you publish an article talking about, okay, like 5,000 trees cut to for plantation of palm oil, this news was very shocking 20 years ago, and probably people would have said, you shouldn't do that because climate change is real. Or even if there wasn't enough awareness, but this was still like very shocking. Oh, government is cutting trees and we shouldn't, we shouldn't do that. But now there is so much climate change information that something like this will rarely shock you, and you'll move past it and you'll say, all right, what can I do about it? And then this ties back to the previous episode that we did, like why do people feel hopeless or helpless sometimes when they consume too much news, too much information? That's also one thing. So yeah, this
And
has
I
been.
like just building on that point. I also feel that like it is a disgusting thing to just think about, right? Like a bunch of very wealthy, powerful people decided to have an like one guy had an island of his own. He kept calling people to it, and they decided to do a bunch of illegal, inhumane things to minors, to girls, just probably sometimes for fun. Other people, there were also in people involved who wanted to get into power, who wanted to make some business deals. This was sort of a leverage, or this was sort of a thing to complete transactions, because there have also been emails even about Anil Ambani and other people where they have like literally requested some girls from Epstein. He has said he'll arrange them, and in return probably for some big business deals. So it's just a very disgusting thought to
Yeah.
think that people are doing this. But people in general should very like, when you think about it from that lens, people should be very enraged by this should be the talking point everywhere, that we should not let these rich people have this much of freedom and power to take things in control. Capitalism should not exist, stuff like that. All these narratives should be there. But because, as you said, that even about climate change there is so much of information, even this Epstein files, I think one of the reasons that they agreed, or they probably thought it's best to release them now, is because there is so much of information about everyone. It gets dumped every, like, new information comes out every few days or weeks, and you keep learning new things that, as you said, you get sanitized to it. And over time, even Trump in his press conference recently, he asked that journalist, that CNN journalist, I think, to just move on. Like, it was so easy for him to say, move on
Yeah.
from it. There are more things to, look into. And that is probably the whole motive of this, to dump so much of information that people don't even know whom to concentrate on. Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking, Ambani, even a prime minister was there, who to concentrate on. And eventually, when you have no solution to this, when you're too confused to figure out, you will eventually move on to other things, because as we know, new information gets dumped on us every single day and there are new issues coming out. So
Yeah.
again, this is
Yeah.
probably one of those things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's the same thing, like so much information. We don't have time to analyze the particular information and take some steps towards it, that we just move on. Like this is a coping mechanism. It's like the Three Idiots scene where Raju and I think Amir Khan's character, they were in where did he go? I think, yeah, they like They were in the house of the no, Raju was the thing who committed suicide, who tried to commit suicide.
Raju.
Yeah, so they were in Raju's house, and then his mother was complaining about vegetables and other things, and she was talking about, okay, the sister is also not married, and look at his father, he's so ill. So it's like, okay, 3 4 things that are really bad have been thrown at Amir Khan and Maddie, and they're like, "Hatao yaar, matar paneer pe concentrate karo." It's the same thing. There is so much information, so many like traumatizing things coming at us. I'm like, you know what? I don't want this. I'll play FIFA. I'll go to my work. I'll earn enough money to go and have a trip in Goa. Bus. That's the thing I want. I am no one to change the world. I can't do this, which is a very real thing to feel like. I wouldn't judge anyone if someone does that. And I've also met people who are completely the opposite, who do understand this phenomenon, but then still choose to say, you know what, like it's a burden. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do you want me to do for that? So I won't do that. I'll probably participate in some kind of a local movement if there is one, but I wouldn't take action myself. So I haven't met someone yet, like met face to face, who talks about these issues and says, okay, I'm actively working to do this. So even if we talk about climate change, for example, I haven't met anyone yet who immediately says, "Yeah, these are the steps I'm taking." And probably, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense, or it contributes towards the solution. But this is what I have learned, and I'm actively trying to do that. So I haven't met anyone who says anything about anything really. Like the
Yeah,
solution oriented approach. I don't see that, but
because that
there's also a
like
denial of
there
this
also
as
needs
well.
to
Mhm.
exist, like, because you said 3 4 problems are thrown at us. We need to probably start prioritizing. This is the one big issue that is currently bothering everyone at this moment and has the biggest impact on society. Let's try to fight that, then look at other issues. But as you said, in our brain, we just think everything needs to be solved at once. Otherwise,
Yeah.
nothing needs to be solved. I'll just ignore it. So that is
Yeah.
one approach that maybe people can start taking.
One solution, I think, if people want to feel in power and in control, if they're feeling that they are not after listening and uh, watching everything about Epstein files, is that you can, going forward, demand transparency in our own government. So if you want to avoid everything, I think there is a good thing that you can either email local party headquarters, email the PM, and I don't know how much effect that will have, but it is something that you can do without actually stressing out on taking actions, or stressing out on the consequences of the actions. Promoting transparency is very important, and yeah, I think apart from that, I just don't think how what we can do as individuals who are not in that sector. But if someone is working for this, I think, I'm sure that there are activists who are working on starting investigations to all the people who are connected, and Indians are connected as well, and Indians of the highest positions are of course connected. So we need more arrests. We need people to start investigating more. I think, I'm sure people are going to do that. So probably after this episode, if I find anyone, I'll add it in the comments as well. So maybe you can support them by donating money. That's the second
Yeah.
easiest thing you can do. So yeah.
It does happen. Like, if, as you said, if you mail, you can mail your local authorities. Or I've even seen reels of people where they have some issues in their community or their society. They have actually reached out to their
Mhm.
local municipal corporations. It does take a lot of time. It's not like you call them in 2 hours, they're there and the issue is solved. It takes a lot of follow-ups. It takes a lot of efforts, but it does happen. Like, if you keep
Yeah.
consistently reaching out to them and expressing your concerns, these authorities at some point, because you have always said that there are some good people in the system, that is why, like, it functions that well.
Yes.
So there are people who somewhat care, but it's just that we don't know how to reach to them. But I think the least we can do is probably try, and most of the times we just leave it like, India is hopeless and who is going to take all those efforts? We know nothing is going to happen. The roads are like this, blah, blah, blah. But we actually don't try to take any action for it. So I think the least we could do is try reaching out, try seeing what happens, and then probably arriving at a conclusion that I did try, but it did not happen. But without trying, I think we should not arrive at conclusions like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, that's a good point to end this episode, a short episode that was triggered by my mother calling me and almost every day trying to understand what is happening with Epstein files. And she is shocked. She is shocked, and she is like she's a very firm believer of goodness, and she believes that people are good. And she believes that, yeah, like God will look after everything because it can't be this horrible, right? But obviously when news like this comes up, the entire belief system is doubted. And probably if you are an atheist, or if you don't believe in the divine power, it's much easy to digest this information, because we already know that bad people exist and good people exist, and this is the way humans have developed so far. But yeah, for someone like who really believes that uh, good things will happen to good people, I do get shocked, because there are some really horrible examples, and it's like it's not even worth discussing. And I'm in a dilemma whether to use Epstein's face in the thumbnail or not, because if I use it, we will obviously get more views because his face is now trending and people instantly click on his face because they want to listen or hear more about it. But at the same time, I feel that it's just it's unethical to promote this guy who is such a bad guy, and like using his face to get what, more views. Like, like this is something that everyone should think about. But obviously there's a compromise that we have to do, so because we want that, like, okay, we do one bad thing to have this good impact. And imagine the same philosophy used by, okay, so we want to end, but this is something exciting when we talked about this. So we think like these people are bad, these people are evil. But imagine, and I had introduced this concept to both of you, I think last year. These guys are actually, in their own mind, are not bad. They
Yeah.
feel that they are taking the world forward, but in order to do that, these are the compromises they have to make. It's the same thing that I am thinking right now, whether to use face of Epstein or not. But the consequences of that for me and for the world are very little. But if you expand this concept to big guys who are charged with criminal activities and other things, and what we think about the CEOs and billionaires and the politicians, they might not be evil or bad people. They might just think the same way that I am thinking, but just this concept enlarged to whatever they are doing. So CEO or the owner of a big oil company might feel as though, you know what, oil is, or has convinced himself that oil is the thing that is giving the world what it needs. Like, it's giving people happiness, because with my oil, people are driving cars, and people are wearing clothes, and whatever, they have PCs, and they have this equipment, because everything needs oil. And he is convinced that I know that I probably harm the earth, but this is what we need, because this harm is all right, because I'm taking the world forward. The same thing Elon Musk might think, that you know what, I need to do this for this guy, even though maybe I know that it's not really, or people have pointed out to me that this is a bad thing to do, that I need to do this because I am the one who is going to save the world, and these are the consequences that I have to make. But it is kind of deluded, because they have convinced themselves. So they're like, yeah, they're bad and evil in terms of who they are affecting, but in their own mind they might not be that. So no one is decide, or Ambani is not deciding every day when he wakes up that today is the day I will do this evil thing and this bad thing because I want to destroy the world. It's not that. And even I think I had heard somewhere that Stalin, no, Stalin was Russian, I think. Yeah, Mussolini was Italian.
Italian,
So
yeah.
Mussolini actually was very convinced that the world needs communism and the world needs dictatorship, because that's the way peace is going to be maintained. And he was actually bad in the end for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, they are not bad guys, and that's the worst part, that we don't have a clear evil and good in this world. We have people who have convinced themselves of whatever they're doing is the good thing.
Right.
So that could be like one theory that we can explore. And yeah, I think that's it. That's it for this episode. Thank you for this. And I hope that people deal with this issue much better, because this is a big issue, but often it is very difficult to make people, do something about this, leaving their ordinary life that they have worked so hard to create and be here. So, yeah. And if you have anything to say, do comment, and we'll meet in the next episode. This is Navigating. Until next time.